Well, hello everybody, and welcome to today's webinar on simplifying Salesforce testing with AI-driven Codeless tools. My name is Sar, rhymes with car. I'm a marketing manager here at Sauce Labs. And before we get started, I'd like to go over just a few housekeeping notes, just so you know how to participate in today's event. Just number one, you should see your Zoom webinar control panel at the bottom of the Zoom window. Please use the Q&A feature to submit questions for today's presenters. In addition to submitting your own questions, you'll also be able to view and upvote questions submitted by other attendees. You may send in your questions at any time during the presentation, and we'll answer as many as we can during the Q&A session at the end of today's presentation. We've already had some awesome submissions of questions, and we can't wait to hear more as the presentation continues. If you have any technical issues whatsoever or you need support during the webinar, you can contact us via the Zoom chat or email us at webinar@saucelabs.com, and we'll get back to you as expediently as possible. Finally, I'd like to remind everyone that today's presentation is being recorded, and you'll receive an email with links to view the recording and slides following the event. The last note, please just have fun today. We're really looking forward to this conversation featuring our two speakers, Raj and Venkat. Now, it is my pleasure to introduce today's speakers. Venkat Ranga, currently he's the head of business technology at Aryaka, a global leader in managed software-defined WAN, also known as SD-WAN. And previously, he's led business technology delivery at Malware and VMware, with nearly a decade of experience between those two roles alone. In this capacity, Venkat spends a lot of time thinking about how and why business technology teams need to exist, and often shares why a company stands to benefit from adding one to their org structure. And most importantly, how the business technology team must evolve to meet the business demand in the SaaS world. And Raj, an awesome colleague of mine, he's also the co-founder at AutonomIQ, which was previously acquired by Sauce Labs, and is part of the team that's enabling the software teams, factories, and processes of the future. Prior to AutonomIQ, Raj has held senior vice president roles and GM roles at CA Technologies. He's been the global head of software quality at NTT Data and has led product leadership roles at SAP, PeopleSoft, which is now Oracle, and Broadvision. With that, I will pass it over to Venkat to get us started. Thank you.
Good morning. So I think we'll touch on it quickly on the automation tools within the business technology domain, and followed by Raj will speak quite a lot about the product itself. And we do have a Q&A session at the end. Again, as Sar mentioned, please continue to send your question so we can take it up at the end. Again, good morning. Thanks for giving me an opportunity to speak to you, Raj and Sar and AutonomIQ team. My goal is to quickly introduce what the business technology team, it's also known as a CIO organization, and what we do and how that benefits an organization, and most importantly, what it has done for me, QA automation within the business technology realm. If I look at today, what business technology do is there are 4 or 5 different things. The major things are strategic. First and foremost is the strategic. As a leader, you have to start looking at how you can create a value for the organization using the technology. And I'm purposely saying the word business technology. It is a CIO organization, because there is a change happened over the last decade also, and especially the SaaS world. And we tend to do quite a lot more business value anytime this technology team delivers. In the traditional world, the technology team is waiting for the requirements to come from a business, and they were trying to build a solution. But now, this technology team is also working very closely with the business and then enabling the solutions. So that's a big shift happening already. So in that role, there are four major things we look after. Strategic, of course, we need to make a difference in terms of the what business wants and what strategic initiatives they want to build, and then put together a roadmap and then execute on that. And most importantly, never forget the innovation. You have to have an innovation center within this team who would seek out the tools and technologies that enables the business to run faster. As a matter of fact, I found this particular tool, AutonomIQ tool, through that initiative alone on my side. And I'm working on many of that. The second most important piece of the work is the program management. Now we have, let's say, 10 to 15 different initiatives are going. How do you execute them? So you got to have a plan, a cadence on how to execute these projects happens through the program management office, which is the main function of executing the strategic initiatives. And they also build up a different standards, budget planning and project planning and then whatnot. Those are about the execution. But what are we executing really is the processes. If I take a look at, doesn't matter an organization as a multi-billion-dollar organization is a startup or a SMB or an enterprise, you have to have at least 6 to 7 different processes we need to run the business very smooth. One, we call it as a lead to quote. You're probably familiar with it. How a lead you can acquire from the field, and then how do you generate a quote, a potential lead acquisition to create a quote. The second process, which is the most important underpinning of the organization, is a quote to cash. How you quote from there to order and collect the money and recognize the revenue is the longest pole in a tent. If you look at any business, it's not about selling, it's also about collecting the money. If you are not going to collect the money, you are not going to be able to pay your employees. Plus, of course, company has to be profitable. So this quote to cash cut across the many organizations. I'll spend a few minutes today discussing that. The next important process is called issue to resolution, where the issue comes into the organization through a customer ticketing, and then how do you resolve that? Then there are a couple of processes which predominantly in the CFO organization, what we call a procure to pay and record to report. It's all about how you procure the services and pay for the vendors. And then also on the record to report, how do you collect the cash and then process through your internal systems so that you could report into your stakeholders, or if you're a public company, to a public. And most important, the piece which is the hire to retire is where really how you engage your own employees, because every organization without employees, nothing can happen. So you have to figure it out, how you hire an employee, how you retain an employee, and then of course, if employee decide to move on, how do you retire? There are a certain business processes are there. So you have to look at all of these business processes and then put business systems around that is what plays on a process optimization. Of course, it comes with a process governance. And the last but not least, the most important is an operational, normally known as a KTLO, keeping the lights on. And once you build these business systems, you have to maintain it. You have to ensure it is giving the value which is expected to given through this operational process. So that's another big one. This is how I see, and this is how I organize my teams. So let's talk about how we structure the organization a little bit. There are backend systems, which I talked about, the processes which related to hire to retire, procure to pay, record to report, and then a planning, which is a financial planning, which happens in the backend. And there are front-end systems which cater for a mostly sales and marketing is what that comes in, and the support, which are lead to order and order to cash and then issue to resolution. And there would be an integration among all of these systems if you talk about you don't have a single system catered for all of these business processes in the market. It's not easy to do it because everything is different. So you end up having a multiple technical systems or SaaS systems in the new world, which needs to be integrated. That would go through our web and middleware integration, which is known also iPaaS solutions. And the last and the most important is the business intelligence, where you define key metrics for a business. You define whatever the key metrics your CFO, CEO is looking, CRO is looking, and then bring that data and then present it in a manner which is consumable is the business intelligence. So these are the 4 different pieces of the work any business technology team gets engaged in day out. And then all of these business processes are supported by a different systems. Of course, each of this in these boxes, there are many developers, program managers, and then all of them QA, and then everybody will come together. So the reason I wanted to take you from a top down in these slides are how the business technology team exists and what they do. But as a leader, when I want to bring a certain value to the business, I have to follow a certain process to figure it out and then estimate very well ahead in the project to see what customer wants, or at least the internal customer I meant. What would it take to even do a certain initiative? Take an example of order to cash. It cut through so many departments. It changes how the current business users are doing versus how it should be done for many reasons, because each company transforms. But when you go in front of the leadership team, you have to be able to tell them what would it take to do that job. You cannot go and say it costs you X, and then at the end of the project, it turns out to be 3X, and you lost your value right there. So you have to be able to predict what your expenses when you start planning such massive transformational initiatives. This is something I have been doing over the last decade, and these are the numbers are more or like the same for me in every project I undertake, maybe plus or minus 2-3%. And whenever I do the budgeting. So if I take a huge order to cash transformation initiatives, I would be spending at least 30% of my time on identifying the requirements and then managing the project. I'm talking about the resources, it could be dollars. Typically, I look at it as a dollar cost and then load with the resources. It could be an employees or a consultants, and how we fill the project is different, but the costing is typically happens. So 30% of my resources predominantly spending time on working closely with the business analysts, business users, and collecting the requirements and then managing that project. 40% of my resources spending developing the technical solution. And it might be using a Salesforce to do whatever the customization you have to do to make that happen. So there may be an integration project where you build an integration between both systems. So that's the development comes into picture. There's a 40% of my resources goes in every time I look at a project into that one. And the third biggest pillar whenever I look at is a QA. It ranges 30% is the minimum I take. When I look at why 30%, there are many things happens which normally we don't see it. Look at the depth and the breadth of the QA they need to do. There's a functional testing they have to conduct, which is a system testing and an integration testing that's typically done by these individuals. And there is a non-functional testing these individuals do, which is a performance testing and usability testing and security testing. And after that, and they will work with the business users and do the user acceptance testing. And not only that, before you release into the production, you do the regression testing after you release the code to make sure production is nothing is broken in production, you do the smoke testing. That's a lot of effort. So I started to look at over the years, what can I do? I am always look for an efficiency, and I am continue to adopt new tools and the ways doing the business, and especially delivering the projects. And in that process, my numbers are never changed. This 30%, 40%, and 30% is always be around there. But what has changed is by adopting new tools available in the market. You probably heard the low code, no code tools, and then certainly QA automation tools are, and a SaaS, especially in the iPaaS space, you probably looking at out of the box SaaS connectors. Why we choose to do that is that would reduce the implementation time, not the time we spend on the project, but at least if you have given us 6 months project, you could deliver 1.5x, 2x valuables, and eventually that reduce the cost. But your time, what you spend on the project would always be like that. So when I started to work at Aryaka, almost 2 years ago, Aryaka went through a major transformation within the order to cash. Then we are doing it a record to report and then a procure to pay area. I have built literally in the last 18 months, the systems like Salesforce, Zora, and NetSuite to be really connected, and ability to do the sales through the Salesforce, and an ability to do the billing through the Zora, and an ability to do the recording and invoicing, cash collection through the NetSuite, and then on top of it, revenue recognition is all built through that systems. And we spent 18 months on building 6 to 7 different tools bringing in, and then on top of it, executing this whole order to cash process. And it's tedious. And my resources are spending a lot of late nights and then trying to make sure the code which is already in production is not breaking through the new releases we are bringing in. So I am coming up with a bunch of challenges at this time. We have a bi-weekly release goes. I'm releasing a good amount of changes on a week-to-week basis, bi-weekly basis. And then now I'm asking my team to do a QA within those 2 weeks window, where a sprint development is happening, requirements are being gathered, and the QA is doing. And I am challenged with some of these things. I have to do at least 8 different business scenarios from end to end, starting from Salesforce all the way to NetSuite, ensure that new code is not broken. That's the one of the big one. So there's close to 250 different test cases our team is executing. And what is happening for me is if I'm giving only 2 weeks for them to do the sprint, they are coming me and then asking me, they need more time to do all of this testing. So if I end up giving 3 to 4 days of development time within the 2 weeks sprint for a QA, I am not really achieving a lot. So my goal is to see how can I really reduce that time so I can push more new changes into the system. So QA is taking a considerable amount of time within the sprint, so that reducing my throughput. My goal is to increase the throughput. And most importantly, we are unable to do all the test scenarios because our sprint cycles are very tight, and which means I am compromising the quality of the code, which could potentially go into production and could cause a damage. So these are my challenges when I was started to execute, especially in this particular area. So let me talk to you a little bit more about the order to cash process, the complexity around this, what Aryaka is faced up with. And then again, this is not a Aryaka problem. If I would sit across the table with any organization who is, doing the business, especially in the business technology, they have to go through this. I could spend an hour talking about this, and in the interest of time, I will speed it up a little bit. When you talk about this order to cash, or a quote to cash, if we look at it, the first and the foremost thing is how you create a quote to give a quote to a customer. And the quote has to be quick, and it should be easily created, and it should support all business models of your sales motion. And of course, it's going to have its own discounting rules and an approval force. All of them will come into the quote. That's the one big chunk. And where there are groups involved in that is a product, sales, renewal, and leadership is involved in that particular alone to define how the sales motion is going to happen. Once you define the quote, there's a contract management comes in, how you negotiate the contract. There are the terms and conditions on the contract which you're familiar with. And each contract terms and condition has a different impact downstream. Typically in the contract, the legal, finance, and sales leadership team gets involved because every clause you put it in a contract has a positive or the negative cash flow impact, which needs to be approved by downstream systems or approved by the different business functions, mostly finance. Once the contract is in, then you get into the more of an order fulfillment, where you do the provisioning of your sale. It might be hardware or it might be software, whatever you are selling, and you would do the provisioning, and then you also create a renewal opportunity so that those will be a triggering points for your billing. As you come into the billing, you have a mini billing plans. There are billing done, especially in the SaaS world, it's very complicated. You bill on monthly basis, you bill on a utilization basis, you bill on a credit basis. Sometimes the companies sell in the credits upfront and then they do the redeeming at a later. There are many combinations which has a impact on how you sell, how you define your contract. Certainly the finance and then your collection team gets involved. And on top of it, your taxation team comes in. As you probably know, how complex is our US taxes, especially the state words. And then even at the zip code wise, there are taxes different. So there's a lot of complexity goes around that. And then followed by eventually cash collection and the revenue recognition. Every public, non-public company has to follow the 606 rules, and then you have to build that a system and then a process is in place to ensure that you are doing the revenue is recognized properly. So these are the 6 functions of our systems you need to build. They may come from a 2-3 systems. It depends on the size of the organization. It may expand to big. So when I do all of these, I ended up 3 systems as I talk. So we have a Salesforce does all the coding. That's the big chunk of work went in. We use CPQ within a Salesforce to do our coding process. And then we pump that data through our Celigo integration tool through our Zora billing system. That's where our billing happens. And different type of billings. I talked about a monthly, quarterly, and a half-yearly type of billings. And we also do the utilization billing is also happens. And then everything comes back into my NetSuite, which is my ERP system at this time. And then that would be process the cash collection and RMAs, return material authorizations, and we do the fulfillment. And then also we do revenue recognition there. So with given the landscape I have here to test all of these is taking quite a lot of time. So we certainly, partnered with an AutonomIQ, and we made integration into all of these systems. So I have a single point where I can launch my QA automation at this time. So then I can really cut through the time for executing all of these, which really made huge benefit for me. Just to quickly, before I walked in, what I was hoping through the automation, and then I know we are almost there to achieve all of these. I have testing the total overall testing right now. What we have, I catered almost like 2 days to 3 days for a sprint. My goal is to cut down by a day and a half, we are able to accomplish that. And basically, regression testing is alone. I'm talking about regression testing and regular testing. Regular testing, we were able to cut down up. My team was demanding me, they need to do the regression testing, ensuring that all those 250 test cases to run takes the 2 days. But my goal is to push them to a half a day through this and a QA automation tool, which we have able to achieve, which really giving me a reduced total cost of operations. And then most importantly, the perceived value, which I was hoping to do, is to increase business value by pushing through a lot more stories in the sprint, that we are able to put through that. And the most importantly, what I was always been planning for my team and then my QA resources to be play big role, up level their career progression, to be play a more BA and a QA combination. And now a lot of this work is automated. So I'm started to move them into a BA roles because they understand the systems, they understand the business processes. They have been testing this for the last 18 months. They can talk to the business exactly what is going on. So now they are moving into their career, especially as a BA plus QA, so they can be very close to the business user, know the business requirements well ahead, so they can even not only play that role and then also be a QA role, which is an added value for me at this time. That ends my presentation. I'm hoping you guys have any, you guys may be already sending your questions. Please send it to us, and we can certainly take it up after Raj's presentation. Raj.
Thank you, Venkat. Thank you, appreciate it. Let me share my screen. So quickly, I want to, so Venkat was able to map from a very high level, critical business process for an enterprise to SaaS applications. I'm going to focus on one SaaS application, but this story applies to pretty much all the rest of it. When I say SaaS application, in this case, I'm referring to Salesforce, right? Salesforce, these are common testing challenges. If you look across this picture, you can see the breadth and depth of Salesforce products. Salesforce has so many technologies, so many applications. It's a vast ocean to itself. And you need one platform that can test all of it. That's one of the challenges. The second thing is Salesforce involves technologies that are extremely dynamic in their behavior. For example, they use something called iframes, shadow DOMs, these and even Lightning Web Components. So these technologies that they're using make the automated scripts to break, because things shift around very quickly. That's the nature of dynamic application. So that is a challenge. That means maintenance burden on organizations for maintaining test scripts is very high. Like Venkat explained so beautifully, this application supports very key business processes. And on top of it, the people who test are not test automation specialists, because Venkat's team doesn't have a SDET sitting around waiting to automate. He has functional experts, BAs essentially, who are doing testing. And those folks need a framework or a product that can that allows them to go from intent to automation with very little effort, and so on. And the rest of it, like frequent changes, Venkat talked about. Now, there are existing frameworks, both commercial and open source frameworks that are available for automation. The challenge with them is all of them were designed with a tester and a test automation engineer in mind. So that means it is not a good fit for Salesforce testers who happen to be more citizen testers. Second thing, even if you had an expert, it would take them hours and hours to create a test script. Remember what Venkat's goal was. Venkat said, I don't want to have 2 days to automate, 2 days to do my testing. I want to do it in half a day. So, in other words, he's looking for time compression and efficiency. Venkat's team doesn't have 5 to 8 hours per script to create a new test, and also maintenance of tests. Maintenance of tests are even higher for a product like an application like Salesforce, simply because it's a dynamic application. So when we started Autonomic several years ago, our vision was to disrupt and address this problem. So we started with a simple premise. We would like to ask a simple question to testers. What would you like to test today? That means we're just asking them, what is your test intent? And test intent can be expressed in English. And once you provide us the test intent, we will take that, automatically understand that, and we can read it just like a human being can, because we have built a domain-specific, test domain-specific NLP engine that understands that and automatically navigates the application under test, whether it is Salesforce, SAP, NetSuite. In fact, Venkat's team is using it to test all of those applications. So whatever the app is, we can automatically navigate the app, generate the scripts, execute the scripts across cross-browser, cross-OS, and then maintain the scripts for the life of the scripts. Whenever there's a change to XPath or CSS selector, object IDs, we can, object identifiers, we can actually automatically fix it and reduce your maintenance burden. So what we have delivered is, in simple terms, one platform to address the breadth and depth of Salesforce. Self-healing capability or auto-healing capability to address the dynamic application behavior. And then to support key business processes, like Venkat just showed us, this beautiful diagram of all these multiple applications, we have an end-to-end testing capability built into the product that supports cutting across multiple applications to support your quote-to-cash business value chain. Finally, it is designed with a citizen tester, a non-test specialist in mind. So this actually helps anybody who can express a test intent to go ahead and do the testing. Now, this is an example of an ROI one of another customer has derived from our product. They're able to, what used to take them 4 hours to create automation, they can do it in 30 minutes. The amount of, this is per script, right? And what used to take them an hour to maintain a script is done automatically because through auto healing. And time for regression testing has dramatically dropped because now most of the regression is done with automation, and feature velocity has increased. This is one of the things that Venkat was referring to, which is he wants more features delivered, not more automation scripts by hand, right? And so this is what, this is another capability we have. Venkat had 2-week sprints. Some of you answered 1-week sprints or 1-week releases. So that means that there is a potential for you to improve your feature velocity. Now let's do a quick demo of the product and walk through this. So if you look at this, this is our application. I've already logged into this app, and you can see here, what we have done is mapped all testing activities into 3 phases. There is a planning phase, there is an execution phase, and there is an analysis phase. In the planning phase, I can create the test case. Test case is nothing but a collection of test steps. And test suite is a collection of test cases. And you can, this is where you can concatenate or group the test cases to cover multiple applications. And these are projects. You can see here, this is a specific project to test Salesforce. This is a project to test John Deere applications, and so on. Each one has a purpose, and you can easily see what it is, what is the application under test. So since I said we're going to start with the intent, you can take a look at this. This is our intent, right? So intent is simply described in English. This is simple English. You can see here, column H, where you can describe what you would like to test today. You know, you can say, these are the steps I would like to do. And simple English, there is no keywords. This is not a keyword. Instead of enter, you can say something synonymous, and we will understand that, right? There is no, you can write your grammar however you want. We will be able to process that. So we take this as the input, and there is a matching data file, right? For you to run the test, you need to have a matching data file, and here are the data file. And in this case, the top row, you see here, this top row has names or labels, and the second row is the value. So it's nothing but a name value pair, right? So what I'm going to do is I'm going to actually do a live demo here. I'm going to import my test case. This is the test case I just showed you. And next, I'm going to import my test data file. As you can see here, this is the data file. And the moment I hit submit, my job as a tester is done. What the first thing the platform does is it extracts all of the steps, the intent, basically. See here, this was the intent that we had provided, and it has extracted all of it. And then it starts processing each step. And as it processes each step, as you can see here, it is actually, what it is doing is it is going through, and here is the intent, open the website, and then it gives you evidence of execution that it is doing the right thing. And here you can see I need to enter username, password, and here you can see it entered the username, right? And it highlights that field where the name was entered. Similarly, password, you can see here, the password was entered and it highlights it, and so on. And let me show you some more interesting things here. Also, there are some very cool things we offer out of the platform. Some of those are, for example, you wanted to hide, obfuscate critical data. So we want to provide synthetic data, but you don't have the ability to generate synthetic data, but we do, right? You can say, in this case, the tester did not want to reveal the last name of the person because that's PII. So they just gave us an expression, and using that expression, we can generate the last name here and enter the information there, right? Into the AC is enter a name, the last name, and that's all you have to say, and then provide us the expression, we will automatically generate this, and so on. So in other words, we can take simple English and actually generate, from intent to scripts. Before I go to and show you scripts, let me show you a simple way to do verify. By the way, you can do this, the synthetic data, for any data type. If it's a calendar event, if it is an amount, anything you want to generate, we are able to generate. So there is no limitation on the data type. In this case, the tester wanted to verify contact detail is on the screen for whatever reason. And here it finds contact detail is on the screen and highlights that. So verifications are simple, assertions are simple, and doing this entire thing is very simple. Now, taking from the intent, it has actually generated a script for us. And you can see this script. This is the script that was generated within minutes. And also there is a report waiting for us. If you look at this is an HTML report. You can see here, Chrome 75 Linux. It ran on a cross-browser, cross-OS, 12th May. And you can see here all of these different things: test steps, data, step time, message, status, screenshots. For every step, there is a screenshot that you can expand and you can then shrink, and so on, right? So all of this was done by me as a tester, inputting my file into the system. That's all I did. I wrote up the intent. During my agile sprint, I can create my intent and then generate the rest of it. So that, in a nutshell, is a simple demo. There is other capabilities as well. For example, if you want to, I'm sure you have a mix of custom apps and packaged apps, as we saw in that review. So for those people who have mix of those, you can also create intent by using our studio. See, this is the studio it launched, and I can easily change the test case with a unique name. I'm going to call it May 12th. test one. And then here, I'm going to go ahead and navigate the app. Let us say that I would like to buy these items here. And I'm going to add it to cart. And then continue shopping. And buy more parts. And you get the picture. So what it has done is it has captured everything I did in simple English. See, there is no technical details here. You can easily add more steps here and modify these things. So you can easily do that. And then once I save this, that is when the magic happens. So if you go back and look at the application, May 12th test one is already in progress. Within the next few minutes, this test will be processed, a script is generated and executed. So you can actually provide us input in multiple ways. One, intent in English. Number two, just navigate the application. We will capture an English test for you that can be used by humans as well as by the machine. So that, in a nutshell, is the demo.
Well, thank you, Venkat and Raj, for the excellent presentation here. Very informative, and we can tell by the amount of questions that people are asking now. It's kind of tough to keep track, but I will do my very best to get to these. And so, as Susie mentioned, if there's a particular question that you want us to answer, as we only have 15 minutes and we'll try to do as many as we can, please feel free to just upvote them in the chat there, just so that we can get to those in priority. Okay, so starting off, first question here, it's from Kanika, and sorry if I mispronounce the names. This question is probably for Venkat. What percentage of automation do you recommend for agile-based low-cost project?
So for me, depends on what automating you are automating. Even though it's a project may be a low cost, but the feature which you are introducing may have a high value. And you may not be doing a lot of automation. You think it's not required. But once that code goes into production, that may impact your existing code. So you have to see always whatever you are doing now, what kind of an impact it would do into the production. So I would do, especially if that feature is important, that needs to be tested, that cannot be broken once it goes into the production forever. I would add it into the automation as part of my regression testing.
Excellent, thank you. And the next question, probably for Raj. Is this just for SaaS apps? And how does this work with custom apps?
Excellent, thank you. So it works, basically, AutonomIQ is designed to work on any web cloud SaaS application. Today, many of our customers are using it both for custom apps and SaaS apps. As long as it is rooted on a HTML DOM, we can handle it, we automate it. So that is really the common denominator. One of the things I forgot to mention is we also do API testing. So as long as you have a mix of API UI, we can do whether it's custom app or SaaS apps.
Excellent, thank you, Raj. And other question, probably for Raj, can it be used on all the browsers?
Yes, you can use it across any browser OS combinations. Today we offer those.
Excellent. And do we have access to historical reports?
Whatever you have run on our product or our platform, we keep a historical report of that, and you can go back and access it. We maintain detailed runs when it was run, basically the run metadata as well as the run results. We both have that, and then that can be shared.
Raj, I want to add on that one.
Sure.
One of the things what I'm doing and then what I'm really going after is it's a compliance requirement that we have to be doing the testing and then capture the test results and then save it. Any public company, looks at all of these things, and then especially under ITGC. So I am planning to use on all these results to be documented as part of the package, which I send it to the production. So yes, I am using that data set.
Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Venkat. And for Raj, in which language are scripts written?
The scripts today are generated in different flavors of Selenium, Java Selenium, Ruby, and so on. But mostly it is Selenium. But however, we are also able to, our backend is flexible where we can generate, right now we are working on, it's on a roadmap to generate Cypress, for example. We also are able to generate, there is a UiPath as a standard called XAML. So we are able to generate that. We have demonstrated that. If you go look at YouTube, you can get that. You can see it. So essentially, there are different languages we can generate today. Widely, is used for different flavors of Selenium, but we are working on Cypress and other things.
Excellent. Thank you. Now, there is a question that we did receive pre-submitted, and I think it could be worthwhile to getting to, probably for Venkat. What kind of testers, sorry, let me just, what type of testers use Autonomic to automate test scripts, in your opinion?
Be honest, everyone. I mean, in any QA professional, my goal is to not do manual testing, and we have to get onto this automation. So everyone, I mean, now we are moving them up leveling into the business UAT too. Business users can do their testing through screen capture and then, following through their intent. They can do that too. So the idea of the QA is the intellectual knowledge what they have needs to be put it into an automated script, so that they can go and spend their time on other features or other high value items. That's how I look at it.
Great. And this is probably a great ladder up question for Raj. So why artificial intelligence testing? Why AI testing?
Well, that's an excellent question, because see, what AI enabled us to do was understand intent in the way you want to express it. Before AI was available, we had a lot of challenges interpreting, understanding human intent. Once AI was available, now we can actually use, not only understand the human intent, but also understand the application layout. We can automatically navigate and group the application objects to certain categories that we can manipulate. So AI has really given us a tremendous amount of ability to understand the applications and the human intent. On top of that, we're using AI for synthetic data generation. When you think of synthetic data, actually generating synthetic data is a very complex activity because there has to be relationships maintained. There has to be regional flavors. For example, if you want an address set synthetically generated, there are UK specific address set. That is very different than the US. And so the system has to understand all of these things. With using AI, we are able to make a much better, higher quality synthetic data that is very, very close to representative data set that you would get from a production, right? So these are the ways we are using AI. Without AI, we would be able to do this.
Thank you. And Venkat, in your opinion, did the number of defects leading to escalations from either the production support teams to software development teams increase as well as you were kind of going through this process or going through this journey? Anything you can share on that?
That's a very good question. Yes, it does increase. Let me tell you why. I would rather be caught by my test script and then fix than embarrassed by customer finding that on the field. It's the damage what it is going to create for us once this code is released to the field, and then somebody who is in front of the customer and then using my system to code, and then he's unable to code, or he or she is unable to code, would be a disastrous than somebody internally finding through the regression testing that we messed up. We have to fix it. So I would any day, I don't mind my team identifying the mistakes, my internal business users identifying the mistakes. So I at the end of the day, I can send out a high quality code rather than an embarrassment and which happens with my regional sales director in front of the customer. So yes, it will, but I'm okay to take that shot.
Thank you. And probably for Raj, how does the runtime compare to a local environment? And what's the failure rate for a bug defect catch rate? And does the user see or get?
So there is a lot of questions in that. So let me describe let me start with the execution environment. So in the way we design the execution environment, it's all in the cloud. So what is the big difference between local execution and the way autonomic SaaS labs can execute is scalability. We can actually spin up as many instances as you want of cross-browser, cross-OS. And the biggest element is you don't have to maintain it, because maintaining this cross-browser, cross-OS is a challenge. So that burden is on us, and we will do it. And also, we can scale up a concurrency, high concurrency. So that means you can run a bunch of tests. Just to give you a simple math, right? Let's say you have 100 tests to run, and each test takes 3 minutes. If you ran them sequentially, that would be 300 minutes, 5 hours. We could run that in 15 minutes, because you could actually bring up 100 separate instances or nodes and then run them concurrently and collapse them, release them as soon as it's done. So there are some real efficiencies that can be had by having something like this.
Great. And there's a good question here, Raj. Can we modify the scripts manually once they are generated, or do we have to change the intent in the tool and do that to generate the script again?
Very, very good question. The idea of starting everything with intent is simply because once you modify the scripts, then we lose the ability to maintain the scripts. See, what we are doing is we are not just creating the scripts. By the way, every script I create, you can download and use it for whatever purpose. But however, once you download and modify it, we go and overlay maintenance aspects on it, meaning we make changes to XPaths and CSS selectors and other object identifiers. When we do that, all your changes will be lost. And that is why we recommend not to get into the script and do things, but you can keep the scripts. We're happy to export it to your Git repository and so on, but not to get into the scripts. However, make all your changes with the intent in English. Make the changes and then regenerate the scripts, and that is the best way and the fastest way to do it.
Awesome. Now, there's just a few questions that I'm just going to rapid fire here. Just a quick yes or no. I think they're pretty straightforward. And then for the last couple minutes, we'll dive into maybe some more in-depth ones. Does this tool support both Mac and Windows? Yes or no?
Yes.
Does it also cover API testing?
Yes.
Is UI automation or both, or is it both for UI automation and UI? Sorry, I don't understand that question. I'm just going to pass out. Does this support Oracle automation?
Yes. In fact, let me just expand on that. The entire Oracle Cloud application suite we test today. There are a lot of customers we have on it, as well as a lot of partners who are using our product to test Oracle applications.
Awesome. And a good question for Venkat. What is the best thing that the tool has done for you? And what is something that you would like to add to the tool if you could?
Yeah, certainly. The best thing it did for me is to cut down the amount of time, to generate the test scripts. That is the most important, because remember what happens is your screens do change. So if I build a test scripts and then, when my screens are changed, if the test script is failed, that's the bad. Again, means I'm to spend time and then maintain the test scripts. But AutonomIQ has given me a feature to identify if it is changed, still the script goes on and then it is not going to fail because of the AI capabilities. That is really helped me a lot. Yes, what it can be done is, certainly I have stretched the what AutonomIQ does. I mean, when I started to engage Raj and the team, the idea was a Salesforce testing. My question is, no, I do not want a Salesforce testing. I want end-to-end testing. So that itself we have stretched from, because my whole talk about is the process, end-to-end process. I need to start at one place and end at other place. Means it's a multi-system. Testing needs to be engaged and involved in that. So we went through that. Certainly there are some gaps identified. And then of course, Raj is going to look at, tightening that. But that's my end goal. I do not look at it as a one system. It has to be end to end. It has to be highly integrated. So there are a few features which are lacking in that area. I think the Raj has that list.
Amazing. And just to finish off, Raj, I know we're pushing up on time. So do the release updates for this tool with every Salesforce release, spring, summer, and winter?
Yes, we actually, so here is the thing. Irrespective of what the Salesforce is doing, we are already pre-validated to work on the latest release. What we are working on is publishing a set of scripts that can be used by Salesforce testers who are our customers. So those scripts has to be maintained from one release to the next release. Everything else, the product itself doesn't have to change for Salesforce, whether Salesforce goes from spring release to whatever the next release is. That doesn't matter. It's because we can't, our platform is agnostic to Salesforce, Workday, Oracle Cloud Application releases. The only thing we change is the content. Content in this case is the test asset, the test case, the test intent. So those things have to be changed, because if Salesforce adds new features, we have to adjust make a little bit of adjustment, but adjustment is all in English. So it's very quick and easy to do.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Raj. Thank you, Venkat. What an excellent presentation. And thank you for everybody for your engaging questions. Sorry we could not get to them all. Please feel free to get in touch with us in case there are some questions that we can just clarify for you. A few quick notes before we close. When you exit the webinar, you'll see a survey on the presentation. We'd appreciate it if you could provide your feedback on that brief survey. You'll also receive some follow-up emails shortly with links to view the recording and slides from today's webinar. And on behalf of Sauce Labs, our speakers and our whole team, thank you for joining us today, whether it's morning, evening, or night, or afternoon. Have a wonderful rest of the day, and we'll be in touch. Take care.